Hello, my name is Leslie Williams, and I'm in San Diego, California. Oops, hang on. And I'm making this particular video file to give you, because I don't think I've done one yet. I might have, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make one now just in case I haven't. I think I have, but it's probably an older video by now. This particular video, I'm going to jump right into the subject matter because I got to hurry up and get about my day. Two things I want to state. This right here is a Chrome laptop that I bought on May 29th, 2013, and they're already making an access of it through Wi-Fi over at UCSD. The first day I used it was on May 30th. I charged it up on May 29th, and then I went to UCSD for the first time the day after I bought it, and went over in their price center to use it, and I was able to upload probably about at least 15 videos, and most of them were being at least 20 minutes long. Now I'm lucky if I can upload 2 or 3 in a 4-hour period. Yes, they're doing the same exact thing that they did at the public libraries. They're slowing down the uploading connection, or the Wi-Fi connection, whatever you call it. And they're doing this in order to make me feel frustrated because of the simple fact that what I do is I use this video camera to upload evidence of audio files. And so if it takes 4 hours to upload one 20-minute video, and I make 7 to 10 videos in one day of proof, that proof takes forever to get on the internet. It can take over 10 days just to put up 10 videos. Now this laptop is also broken through a power surge no matter where I go, because what you have to understand is that I'm literally subject to organized stalking, gang stalking everywhere I go, including my transportation routes, which is still happening. Now, so if it's damaged through normal appearing means like power surges, or it just becomes inoperable and locks up, they did it. Now I was literally subject to organized stalking, gang stalking when I bought this laptop by the Staples employees when I went in there. And everything that I predicted before I walked in the Staples store to buy it was predicted by me in a video that morning and in an audio file as I was going to Staples before I arrived. It almost cost me $400 to buy that, between the purchase price of it, the warranty, and the tax. So we're gonna see if they make it inoperable. Okay, and if they do it, they're going to do it through normal appearing means, and then we're going to see how Staples will try and jive me in reference to, well, the kind of defect it's got, we can't return it. Or if we do return it, we can only give you a Staples card, which would lock me into having to buy one that's more expensive, and then they'll do the same thing to the next one to tie me up in loss of money. Do you see how they work? Now I've already proved that I've been gang stalked at Ralph's, Best Buy, Jack in the Box, 2 Jack in the Box, movie theaters. I have over 600 audio files that literally prove that I've been subject to the same organized stalking, gang stalking harassment everywhere I go. The same exact harassment everywhere I go. So I don't think it'd be hard to prove in court, even though they'd probably send my case before a syndicated judge. The purpose of this particular video is to be able to help you understand what happened in my last apartment in Michigan. Organized stalking and gang stalking is happening in every state in the United States, and they're stupid enough to operate on the same templates of methods and tactics and protocols towards every target in the United States. Targeted individuals like me, we are all over the internet in reference to us posting YouTube videos, blogs, petitions, reaching out to the ACLU and every other place for help, including reaching out to the FBI, and they have not done one thing to help us targeted individuals. Now this is a book here concerning how gang stalking is happening at the post office. Okay, and some of the technological resources that was used against this person. And what is in this book is described by a separate target here from California, Victoria Rose. Everything she describes in her documentation file, everything she describes is described to a T, happening to a separate target who wrote this book. Now, the purpose of this video is to explain to you what happened in my last apartment in Michigan. And what you got to understand is that in organized stalking expeditions, they make practically at least 92% of all targets homeless. Because that's how, they have motivations of racketeering of all forms, and insurance fraud, okay, and human trafficking of all targets. Okay, they will also try to get legal custody of a target so they can treat them like straw people and place them in a syndicated run environment, which is achieved through a syndicated probate attorney and judge that works for the state. Yes, and this is even part of the racketeering. Now, so this is what happened in my last apartment. As a result of being targeted with organized stalking, gang stalking openly, overtly, and sometimes directly every single day since 2000, late 2000 and 2001, in 3 separate states at least. Well, actually 4. Because it's a nationwide syndicate. Remember, it's happening in every state in the United States, and when a target moves from one state to another state, the syndicate that was in the state the target was in will pay off the syndicate in the state the target's going into to take over in the campaign, and they just operate on the same methods and templates because they have the same criminal aspirations per target. And so they just believe that if a target's just worn out, worn down, on top of all the other things that happen to a target, like falsified arrest, falsely petitioning them into county mental health or area hospital, psychiatric floor. Yeah, because it's the accumulated documentation is how they get the syndicated probate control. I'm in San Diego, California. My name is Leslie Williams, and so what they have to do in order to be able to make it appear that the target in part cannot take care of themselves or that they're a threat to themselves or others is to put them out on the street and then provoke them every single day along all their routes using what is known as sensitization methods. Yes, where they will sensitize the targets to specific physical gestures, words, phrases, and even specific sounds. Now, I did not develop their tactics. I'm only exposing them so you can research them at Google, and then you'll be able to understand. And then we put up with assaults, even rapes. I'm in San Diego, California. My name is Leslie Williams. So, this is what occurred in the last apartment I had in Michigan. Now, understand, I was being subject to organized stalking, gang stalking, before I got the apartment, every single day along all of my routes. So I thought to myself, well, if I'm going to be subject to this, I might as well try and possibly at least get an apartment. I got an apartment, and I signed the lease on November 29th, 2009. Excuse me. And I knew I was going to more than likely be gang stalked at this apartment. But I got sick of hiking, okay? And the reason why I was hiking is because they got the previous landlord from my previous apartment to get on board in these campaigns. Now, you can go to Google and type in organized stalking and or gang stalking and property owners, landlords, mail theft and mail delayment of rent, and even rent that's mailed certified mail return receipt, technology, gang stalking at the post office. A book was even written about it, okay? So, what they basically do is that they'll enter your apartment, okay, move furniture around, move personal items around, damage property slightly, you know, like just so you'll notice that it was damaged. They'll steal property and then return it later. They'll even drug and poison your food. They'll even enter your apartment when you're sleeping. They did just say gang stalk. They just said it real low. Literally. They literally just said it real low. And when I listened to this video, I'll point it out where they said it at. Okay, trust me, I know exactly what I'm talking about. They have gotten up on the sidewalk and have literally said gang stalk, gang stalk, gang stalk. Oh my God. Literally. So anyways, it's just a person telling these guys to do this. They don't even know what's going on. They probably don't even know it's me down here. Anyway, so I'm in San Diego, and so what I did was I decided to go ahead and get this apartment. And as a result of the previous experiences in reference to how they were delaying my my Social Security check when I used to get it physically in a P.O. box concerning the last 2 previous apartments, what I did was I developed my own protocol so I could catch them in order to be able to prove landlords were involved, okay? And to possibly even catch the postal employees that were involved. So what I did was I got this apartment on November 29, 2009. He let me move in a couple days before I got paid, which would have sealed the first month's rent and the additional Social Security deposit money that was needed to move in. And so what I did was between November 29th and December 3rd of 2009, I moved in, and I also went to Dearborn Heights City Hall after making some in a letter type format on 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper. I wrote out a bunch of things that I expected would happen in this apartment building concerning the landlords, concerning the kind of harassment that I would probably experience, concerning how they would try to make me homeless, or at least how they would attempt to try and drive me crazy in this apartment building. Then I took these letters, separate letters, and I took them to the Dearborn Heights City Hall, because I had a Dearborn Heights address on my license, okay? So I went and had them notarized, and every single thing on those notaries came true. And this is what they did in order to drive me nuts, in order to try and motivate me to move, and when I wouldn't, they ended up finally stealing my rent. Now, in organized stalking, gang stalking expeditions, what they try to do is anchor fear in your mind that something's going to happen. They're doing it here. They'll ride by on the sidewalk and say gang stalker to get my attention, because I know the name of the crime that's happening to me. And that's done to get my attention as a result of me hearing it. And then they'll say, why don't you come and steal our stuff? In the apartment, what they would do is have people stand outside of my door, and I would see them because it was a studio apartment, which meant that my bed was right about 10 feet away from the door. And the door had just this much space under, between the floor and the bottom of the door for me to be able to see if somebody was walking by in the hallway, because the light was always on in the hallway. So I'd see the shadow and their feet walk back and forth. Right before and after, I would hear a statement like, does she really expect to continue to stay here? Or why don't you get her out of here? Or why don't you have the landlord evict her? And this is called the direct conversation method, in order for them to anchor fear that you're going to get kicked out, or that you're going to have to move, or something might occur that might cause you to have to move or get kicked out. And they're called the directed conversation methods of anchoring fear. And it's also called using DNLP, which means dark neural linguistic programming, where they're trying to program in your mind, I call it anchoring fear, that something bad's going to happen. Okay, and so what they always try to do is anchor the fear first, and then do what they solicit concerning the statements that produce the fear. Okay, and so after they kept repeating that practically every single day, either outside of my door, or as I was walking out of the building, you know, they'd get somebody to say it on the other side of their apartment door. As I was walking down the hallway, I'd hear it as well. First, they conditioned me to hear it outside my door. Then when I'd leave for the day, I'd walk down the hallway and pass other people's apartment doors. And as I was passing their apartment doors, they'd say it. Now, I wasn't doing anything illegal or criminal whatsoever. And so what this was basically about was, because, see, they took a psychological profile of me concerning the individuals that had entered my life through extremely respectable environments and respectable community positions. And basically what they tried to get me to do was to open up about some past things that had happened to me concerning my mother kicking me out way back in the 90s and 80s. Now, I've already connected the dots in reference to my parents being involved in these expeditions. But you see, I had no clue, because I didn't talk to my parents for over 20 years due to abuse. Okay, so from like 18, 19, and plus I got married and moved out of state when I was 19, and then leaving my ex-husband and then coming back and then not living with my parents, because I already still knew what would end up happening with them, moved back in with them, and they'll kick me out because they were abusive. They were part of these expeditions, okay? So, and I didn't know it, so I stopped talking to them for about 20 years, okay? So, I had nowhere to turn to. So, as a result, I ended up having my life covertly infiltrated by a bunch of people from respectable environments and respectable community positions, okay? Then they tricked me into opening up to them about some things that were causing me stress in reference to, like, the distressful memories of what my parents had done in the past and stuff like that. And I told them about how at times it bothers me that my parents kicked me out, and because I was homeless, I experienced some bad experiences. You know, as far as like being homeless for a year or two because of them back in the 80s. And so I told them that it was constantly bothering me, and that I believed that I probably developed post-traumatic stress because of it. So basically what they were doing was getting me to open up so they could take a psychological profile. But it was actually done to confuse me, so I would never connect the dots in reference to how my parents were connected to this. So I would later reflect back on it and say, well, I shouldn't have told them this once they started soliciting fear that it would happen again in the future. This is how sinister these campaigns are. So anyways, on a daily basis, I was being threatened outside of my door. I was being threatened as I was walking down the hallways, coming in or going out of the apartment complex by people and fellow tenants that they solicited to engage in these behaviors. And so basically I was living under a constant, and then the landlord started gaslighting me. Whenever I had intermittent interactions with him on a periodic basis, like when the first few months I was paying rent by giving it to him before starting to mail it. I think for the first 2 months. Then when I would see him and walk by him, he would engage in a specific physical gesture. Yeah. So anyways, so what they basically did for about 4 months, they kept threatening me outside of my door to get my attention concerning the threat, and then to classically condition and reinforce the fear. Then what they started doing was working with the post office employees that I was mailing my rent from to the property owner that was located in Southfield, Michigan. And I was mailing my rent certified mail return receipt. This is on top of being kept up at night by loud music, people throwing keys against the walls, they're entering my apartment, all these other things were happening in between outside of the threats. Okay, they were entering my apartment, throwing keys on the moving things around, throwing keys against the wall in the apartments that were adjacent to mine, taking food out of the refrigerator and putting it on the counter, taking blinds off the window and putting them on the floor, entering the apartment and leaving the door wide open. Yeah, and which I attempted to make police reports about. And anyway, so then after about 3 or 4 months of them constantly conditioning fear that I'd have to move, or that I'd get evicted, or that my rent would get stolen, they started delaying the rent that I mailed, certified mail return receipt. Certified mail return receipt means that you got to sign a card once you enter the P.O. box where the rent's mailed to and put in. They open up the P.O. box, get it out, take the green card out, take it up to the postal employee up at the counter, and they hand you the envelope that was mailed after you signed for it. Okay? Then once you sign for it, that card gets sent back to the sender into my P.O. box. Okay? Because I didn't trust my mail getting sent to that apartment building at all, so I went and I got another P.O. box right up the street. So then what they started doing the first couple months I was sending my rent, they would send the receipt and put it back in my P.O. box on a timely basis. Then it started getting a little bit later in the month, in reference to, instead of it coming back to me within 3 days, then it would be 10 days. Okay? Then it would be 15 days, and then constantly making me worry if they got my rent or not, because I wasn't getting the receipt back while I was being threatened. And this was done to keep me in a hyper-vigilant, hyper-alert state that, am I going to be homeless again because they're threatening to steal my rent? That's why they were inking their fear about she's got to get out of here, she can't stay here, and so on and so forth, right outside my door. And when I heard these things, I saw the feet moving right outside of my door because the light was being displaced, in reference to me being on one side, the hallway light being there, and then you see black movements, okay, between the space between the floor and the bottom of the door. So I could see that they were out there, okay. So then once they started delaying that receipt coming back, that in turn caused me to go through stress what's going on with my rent. Then they started, and this occurred for about 3.5 months in a row. And they were conditioning that fear, along with the fear that was already conditioned concerning the threats. Then after about 3 months of getting delayed receipts back, in reference to them signing the receipt, stating they got the rent, sending the receipt back to me, we're having to wait up to 15 to 20 days for that receipt to come back. Then they started sending me eviction notices every month for about 4 months straight, saying that if they didn't get my rent in the next 7 days that I would be evicted. And then the eviction notice said that I had 7 days to prove that I paid rent. Yeah, so I'm waiting from the 3rd, I mailed rent on the 3rd of every month, sometimes on the 1st depending on when I got paid. And then in the beginning, I would get the receipt back around the 5th or 6th. Then they delayed it for about 4 months straight and didn't get it back to me until around the 12th or the 13th. That happened for about 4 months straight, while I was experiencing the threats every day in between. Then they started sending me eviction notices around the 17th or 18th of each month, letting them ride out for 6 full days, and then them telling the landlord that they got it and that billing just misplaced it. That went on for 4 months, and then they finally stole it and kept it. Yes, expecting me to repay them from a month I already paid, and then for the next month with the next month's paycheck, which would have took the whole entire paycheck, expecting me to trust them with 2 months of rent back to back. They could have easily kept that and then said, if you don't pay 3 months now, then you're totally evicted. Yeah, and this was done in order to be able to cause me to just give up and say, screw this, to make me move out. And after they stole my rent in September of 2010, I finally did just move out. And this is after, well, let me just put it to you this way. Did they enter my apartment and poison my food? Was I deathly sick for over 5.5 days, to the point to where I could barely move to even get up and go to the bathroom? Poisoning is a method of gang stalking. Yes. Along with an extreme electrical phenomenon that was going on in my apartment. Now, I'm not stating that this was happening to me, okay? But look at the title of this book. This has to do with remote neural monitoring that can be found at the bottom of Freedom from Covert Harassment and Surveillance. And remote neural monitoring, well, I'll put it to you this way, if you went to YouTube and typed in John Hall Satellite Terrorism, you'll clearly be able to see that remote neural monitoring is practically always used against organized stalking, gang stalking targets. Now, as far as the bicyclist that went by and he's talked really loud, but then when they said gang stalk, they said it really low as they were talking. Because their whole goal is to say, Leslie, you're hearing things. I don't hear this guy saying gang stalking. Really? Well, look in the videos that are below this video and above this video, and you'll definitely hear the same exact tactic being utilized around me everywhere I go. Everywhere I go here in San Diego. So how did they know I came out here to San Diego is the question. Because it's a nationwide syndicate. You can go to Google and type in a gang stalking tech. Everything you need to know. It's a manifesto of a manager of gang stalking crews. He flat out states that he's a manager of gang stalking, of what is known as gang stalking, and he flat out states that when a target moves from one state to the next, that the syndicate that was in the state the target was in will pay off the syndicate in the state the target's going into to take over the campaign that's happening to a target. Flat out states it. Now, property owners and landlords are all over the internet in reference to being part of organized stalking and gang stalking expeditions. The guy that wrote this book that is directly connected concerning organized stalking is another word for gang stalking. The guy who wrote this book, who was covered on a national TV show, organized stalking is mentioned throughout this entire book. He stated that he had to go through 6 apartments before he finally realized that, because he was a California target, moved to North Carolina after going through about 6 apartments. And then he realized when it was happening to him out there, it just followed him to North Carolina. He came back here and is now supposedly living in Palm Springs. Okay, he flat out stated he went through 6 apartments. And if you go to Google, you'll flat out be able to see that creating homelessness of targets is one of their main objectives. So they can put them out on the street to use it as an excuse to try and take syndicated probate control of them, and to put them out in the wide open in order to be subjected to the non-stop community-based harassment. So if they'll gang stalk a target to an apartment building, to a motel, to businesses, do you honestly think that they're not going to gang stalk a target and harass them through creative means to a hiking area? Bullshit. Because I got the audio files to prove it. Right now, I literally have over 600 audio files of me experiencing the same exact method of harassment around me everywhere I go for the last year and a half of being in San Diego. The last year and a half. The same exact method being utilized around me everywhere I go. Yeah, everywhere, because they want you to feel that, they want you to know and understand that you're being harassed as a result of the same party covertly managing this harassment. So it's just their way to try and break you down and to make you understand and realize that this harassment you're going to experience everywhere you go, including even using the business community. Yes. Now, the person who aided and abetted in stealing my rent in September of 2010 was the same exact postal employee that was mentioned in blogs concerning me way back in 2005 and 2006, which tied her back into, and since I got the certified mail return receipts, okay, which tied her back into the fact that she was involved in the previous apartments. I'm in San Diego, California. My name is Leslie Williams. You know, if you got a book that flat out states that gang stalking is happening at the post office, because this is a post employee that wrote the book concerning how it's happening to her, do you honestly think that gang stalking is not happening at the post office? Go to Google and type in gang stalking and mail theft and mail delayment. I just mailed, and in closing, I just mailed a letter to the Department of my redetermination forms for Medi-Cal at the beginning of May. Okay. No, I'm sorry. I mailed it on May 29th, 2013, which was just, well, today's the 8th of June, and so it's been a little bit over a week. I mailed my redetermination papers to Medi-Cal on May 29th, 2013, and when I was in the post office mailing that redetermination to the Department of Health and Human Services certified mail return receipt, did I hear the tactic and methods that's been caught on over 600 audio files being said around me in that post office again. Remember, gang stalking at the post office. So basically, the community, what is, how in part this harassment is achieved concerning every place I go, which means businesses, public libraries, universities, every business I go to, every place I go to, including transportation routes, is achieved through what is known as the community notification, which is a law enforcement tool that's illegally and criminally being used by syndicated police officers. Now, when you look at that manifesto I talked about, it clearly states that even entire police departments have been taken over. Ah. Alright, I gotta go, so I wanted to let you know, and this is not the entire scope of what happened to me in that last apartment, okay? And I think part of the reason why they finally stole it in September 2010 was because in August, see, I was being tracked and surveilled along all my routes, and they knew before that I had been to ACLU meetings in Ann Arbor, okay? And the ACLU meetings that were being held in Ann Arbor covered my area in reference to the county I was living in. So they knew that I had been to those ACLU meetings in the past in Ann Arbor, okay? And I bought a ticket to go to Ann Arbor in August of 2010. And how do they know in part that I bought it? Well, in organized stalking expeditions, they make sure that they stalk and surveil a target everywhere they go, and that's all over the internet, okay? And where did I buy that Amtrak ticket in order to go to Ann Arbor? And they knew that a great majority of the reason why that I ever went to Ann Arbor was to go to the ACLU meetings. That Amtrak train station was right behind the Dearborn Police. And the Dearborn Police is all over blogs that were written concerning me being directly involved in the organized stalking. Every time I attempted to make a police report concerning about the facts of my apartments being broken into, the facts about the harassment along all my routes, the Dearborn Police altered the report in reference to my statements and omitted facts that I told them. So that automatically told me they were involved in these crimes. Then they started literally having the audacity to gaslight me to my face along with the Dearborn Fire Department personnel. Yes. You would not believe what I know. You literally would not believe what I know. I'm in San Diego, California. My name is Leslie Williams. So who notified San Diego that I came back here I left Michigan in early April of 2011, went to Connecticut up until August of 2011. Whoa, man, a big hawk just came here. Went to went to Connecticut up until August of 2011, and then came here to San Diego on August 8, 2011. So how did they know I arrived back here in August of 2011? I have not developed one relationship with anybody at the acquaintance level, the friendship level, or the intimate level, because it was my goal and my intent to make sure that I stayed by myself totally, so I couldn't give them any hooks to try and apply the hooks to any excuses concerning any proof I obtained, because this is literally what they would do, and you wouldn't believe the proof I got. Okay, so look in the videos that are above and below this one in order to be able to witness some of the proof that I am being stalked in San Diego in reference to organized stalking, gang stalking expeditions, and then ask yourself, why won't the San Diego police make a police report, and why won't the district attorney's office investigate the fact that I am a target of this crime? All you got to do is ask yourself why. Could it be because they're involved in it? Could it be because they're the ones who are perpetrating it? I'm in San Diego, California. My name is Leslie Williams. I make these videos to inform, to expose the truth concerning the factual realities of these expeditions. And this targeted individual that wrote this book that was covered on Coast to Coast, he stated that they broke into his apartment and poisoned him as well. So, and this woman in this book states it as well. So I'm in San Diego. I made